thought I'd do a video on the GH5. Even though it's been out for around about a year now, and the GH5s has just literally been released, I want to talk about the GH5 because I have been an avid GH4 user for about 3 years now, and I was completely happy with it, completely content with it. It was getting the kind of footage that I required with regards to slow-mo at 96 frames a second and Cine 4K. And dynamic range was more than enough. It had enough megabits a second to get some nice color grade out of it. I used Cine D in preference for flat profile over Vlog just because it had less noise. The setup that I always use is with the Metabones XL speed booster, as well as the Sigma Art 18-35 1.8 aperture. Now with that, I can get very, very nice shallow depth of field, bokeh effect, and very aesthetically pleasing image. Low light is good. I mean, it becomes equivalent to a 1.1 aperture over the Metabones Ultra, which prevents the vignetting in the corners of the screen, but I feel as though it's slightly less in good light. I think it only gives you 1.2. I know it's on 0.1, but that still is extra. More bokeh, better in low light. As small as it is. And yeah, okay, you're gonna get more vignetting, but then it's just slightly less wider perspective, hence why you're getting a vignetting in the first place with the XL. So you just slightly zoom in slightly more and it's gone. Plus, with most of my productions anyway, I'm adding some kind of tapers like a 2:3:5:1 aspect ratio. So that's gone anyway once you put the tapers on. I mean, I don't often do anamorphic. I mean, I really want to get into the anamorphics, but just it's more time consuming. Larger projects will want you to do that with larger budgets, so you have more time more than often. You know, so whatever. Anyway, today I want to talk about the GH5 and in comparison to the GH4. This whole review slash, oh God, what would it be? Not information, not review. Conversation? Vlog? I wouldn't really say a vlog. Whatever it is, it's session. No. Huh? Chats. No. So I want to talk about the GH4 and the GH5 with the Metabones XL speed booster and the Sigma Art 18-35. This is a very, very, very popular setup now, especially now the GH5 has come out. And the reason why I want to do this video is, one, because I know that this is the most popular setup out there at the moment for most professionals who've come from something like the 5D Mark III or the A7S II to the 1DX Mark II have gone to the GH5 I've seen, or the C300. So I feel as though it warrants some kind of informational vlog. I want to put my information of what I've kind of seen and sort of an overview of what everyone said about the GH5, especially coming from a GH4 background. The thing that interests me the most is the fact that everybody tend to either have very positive feedback on the GH4 or insults just laid out on the GH4 with regards to its micro four thirds sensor and the fact that it wasn't good in low light. Well, a lot of them people who were saying that have now actually gone over to GH5, which I think is massively interesting because it's still a micro four thirds sensor. The low light ability hasn't improved, although people claim it's maybe 1 stop brighter. Maybe it is 1 stop brighter, but it's not particularly noticeable. Especially not enough to make an upgrade anyway. So the people that were saying GH4 is no good for them, why is the GH5 for them? I was completely content with the GH4. So my footage was, you know, I could grade it enough without any image breaking up. I could get shallow depth of field. I had the nice 96 frames a second. The dynamic range was more than good enough for most of the productions of which I do in music videos and adverts, weddings. So the GH5 has all these features over the GH4, which is like the in-body stabilization, 5-axis sensor shifting, which is amazing. and I've been using it and testing it for the last few days. I mean, I've only had the GH5 for a few weeks now, but I'm massively impressed with the stabilization. That alone can warrant why someone would make the transition between a GH4 to a 5. So the shifting sensor is amazing, which the GH4 didn't have. So you'd always have to use some kind of rig, you'd have to have it on a tripod, you'd use a slider and whatnot. So that's fine. I mean, genuinely, when I'm using the GH4, it's for some kind of production stuff anyway, so it's all gonna be planned and I can think about my kit and how I'm gonna have the movements. Handheld was never really an option with the GH4, especially when you haven't got a stabilized lens, which I never used a stabilized lens. I never used a native lens for the Panic GH4. I always used the Canon EF mount, Sigma Art 18-35 and the Metabones XL speed booster. I had autofocus as well because of that setup was just appalling. It was never usable. I'd never been planned to use it because I want to have complete control over my focus changing, so I'd always manually focus. But the GH5 has got some huge autofocus improvements, huge. And it's got a new version, firmware update 2.2 now, and I've been testing it and it's pretty good. I mean, I'm being filmed now on the GH5 with autofocus set. Now I have actually, I can see the frame around my face. Now, whether I'm actually in focus or not, I will find out. It'd be a bit of a shame to see that this whole thing is not even been in focus. I have a GH4 with a Sigma Art 18-35 and a Metabones XL. Can achieve a 1.1 aperture, which is essentially very wide open, so it's good in low light, and also can achieve very shallow depth of field. Now, it's only a micro four thirds sensor, which is pretty good in my opinion anyway. But with that setup, with the lens and the Metabones, it allows it to be even more of a shallow depth of field than you would normally get on a kit lens, for example. I do have an autofocus, which is never a good idea. But because it's so shallow, it's very hard to get a manual focus because the wireless doesn't work so much. Wireless is pretty poor even out in the open like this. I am using my phone for the wireless signal. Now, GH4 used to always cut off, even if I was only like a meter away, which I am now. And I never understood that because I was thinking, come on, I'm literally right next to you and you can't even gain a signal. It'll just lose signal all the time. That's another thing I didn't mention. So the dynamic range apparently is pretty much the same in the GH4 and 5. Some people are claiming that you can improve the dynamic range on the 5, more so over the 4, which you couldn't do with the 4. I have yet to look into that, but the dynamic range is satisfactory. It's pretty good. Oh, that's another thing. It's continuously record, so it won't break it up like GH4 used to do. Every 6 minutes it would create a new clip. And it was seamless, and it wasn't such a big deal for me, to be honest. I don't see the issue with it. If anything, it kind of there's a nice partition between each segment of talking. But anyway, 2 SD card slots, which is amazing. So you can write to 2 cards in case one fails. It brings me to the reason why I'm actually made the shift from the GH4 to the GH5 is because the GH4 broke. So I thought instead of going for another GH4, I'll make the upgrade, go for the GH5, even though I didn't think the specs were sufficient enough for me to make that leap, especially for the price point, because it's holding its price, GH5. Considering it's been out for around about a year now, and GH5s is out, I think it's still a very high price point. So you really would need to think about the benefits of the GH5 over the 4. But for me, as a filmmaker and a freelancer, I know that it sounds better to a lot of production companies and potential employers to have the latest camera, which is the GH5. Although the GH5s is out now. But no, a lot of people who do have the GH5 are still saying they don't even want to go to the GH5s because of the lack of in-body stabilization, which is a big argument at the moment. And people are saying, okay, well, maybe I'll get the one GH5s and use that for tripod stuff and more dynamic and low light ability, and the GH5 for the handheld stuff on the regular, on the casual. I even used it as a photography camera. I mean, these are some of the images that I was getting. I was getting a nice shallow depth of field, and you can see the color information that I'm getting out of it. Okay, yeah, I did some Photoshop work over the top, but it was still gaining these really beautiful, crisp images. And I was using the Metabones and the Sigma Art lens. Now, another addition with the GH5 over the GH4, it was 16 megapixels on GH4 and now it's 20 megapixels on the GH5. So for photography, you're going to get sharper images, well, more information within the images, so you can crop more essentially. Now, that can be a good thing and a bad thing. So it's a good thing for resolution with regards to taking pictures, but for things like low light ability, technically you would think it'd be worse because its sensitivity per megapixel is going to kind of render it less sensitive to light, so it technically should be more noisy. But the claim, like I said, claims are that it's maybe one stop of an improvement in low light. I think it's roughly about the same, but I would have to have the GH4 working in order to test them and do a correct comparison, or at least a scientific one. But I've seen quite a few comparisons, and yeah, okay, the GH5 does seem slightly less noisy, but nothing significant enough worth noting. I did, in addition, use the FZ 1000s, which not a lot of people talk about, and I think it's kind of an underrated camera. It's a 4K camera. It's a 2.8 aperture. It is a bridge camera. It's got half decent optical stabilization, and its zoom range is like the equivalent of 37mm at the widest to 597mm in its tele zoom, which is massively impressive, and it's all in one package. It's a simpler GH4 with a fixed lens essentially. I mean, there is a newer version called the FZ 2000 now, which is literally like a GH4 in the body, and I believe it has a micro four thirds sensor in the FZ 2000, but it may still be a 1-inch sensor, the same as the FZ 1000. Now, when you're filming at 180 frames a second on the GH5, that is where you can really see how poor it is in low light. Really not good, really not good. But the 180 frames a second when you're outside in good light is absolutely amazing. It doesn't look particularly crisp, but I have put the sharpness down to -5. In body, I'm going to do some post-stabilization, post-sharpening, which can really bring the image out, and you can really see there whether it's going to start crumbling or not. But it doesn't. It does look beautiful. It does look great. These are the things that you still want to carry over from the GH4, which is the settings, and you want to make sure it's a flat profile. I understand a lot of people now are using Vlog L on the GH5 that wasn't necessarily using the GH4 because it created more noise in the shadows, but apparently now GH5 has the ability to kind of smooth that out and it's not as bad, so people are using that. Well, I'm using Cine D. I prefer that profile for now. I may purchase the Vlog L at one point, but at the moment it's just not necessary. I just don't need it. I'm getting the kind of image that I want. The in-body stabilization, so that is amazing. It is very good. It's a lot of the shots that would have be rendered completely useless. I'm walking with the camera and the shots are very steady and usable. I wasn't taking particular care either. I wasn't doing any ninja walk or anything, but it was amazing. And I think in combination of a stabilized lens and a stabilizer, it can be incredibly smooth. And I've seen a lot of vlogs with people using like the Xeon Crane 2, which can take up to 3.8 kilos. It was looking amazing. It looked very smooth and very cinematic. Xeon Crane 2 is something that I would potentially purchase, especially for this setup, and hopefully, and it's because it's more balanced now with the GH5, because it's taller, wider and heavier than GH4, it should help balance that heavy long lens of the Sigma Art 18-35. So they've removed the low pass filter, the the aliasing filter, because they don't believe it's necessary on the GH5 for some reason. And the reason why Panasonic apparently done that is to give more of a fine detail, which was kind of lost and softened up with that filter on the GH4. It's kind of it's a good and bad thing. So you're getting slightly more detail, maybe it's more slightly sharper, but it's obviously the lines which are just jumping all over the place and on patterned t-shirts or shirts or whatever, which you're not going to want, or even on buildings. So yeah, I have yet to see that yet, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be too notable or ruin the image. So the wireless seems to be pretty good on the phone at the moment, and the autofocus as well is astoundingly impressive, especially with the setup that I'm using there, which technically is, you know, it's not native to the camera, and it's working pretty good. I'm going to do one quick test. So my face is here now. See how long it takes. That's not bad. It did it. It did jump out in and out a little bit there. It wasn't particularly smooth. I have got sensitivity set to high, so maybe that's why it's got clank, clank. You know. There we go. Look, it's found me again. Gone back. Very good. And this is firmware 2.2. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, reliability of autofocus. I mean, can you really rely on it when you're doing something like a wedding? I mean, you could watch it and see how it's doing, and if it starts going mental, then just lock it down in manual and start taking control, I guess. And also, there's a little sliding effect as well, a focus pull inside the GH5, which is absolutely amazing. You leave and you can also change the sensitivity and how quick the focus is going to be pulled, which is absolutely amazing. All the back of the screen. You never had that on GH4. You would be struggling manually trying to pull focus, and to nail it and to do it smoothly, it was very hard, and you'd have to do it 2 or 3 times to try and get it perfect. But with the GH5, it's all in the back of the camera, which is absolutely an amazing touch. The wireless, still no problem. I haven't lost signal. It's great. But the app itself is the same. They haven't updated that for the GH5. It's exactly the same as what the GH4 offered. You can control pretty much everything. I don't think you can change the aperture. You can change the shutter speed, white balance, the ISO, autofocus. You can touch on your phone as well to where you want the focus points. It's giving you all the information you need, but you can't change everything and don't have as much control as you would do on the back of the camera. Oh, was there not in focus there? It's hard to tell, very hard to tell. This is why you need a big monitor. Lilliput 4K. It looks the all-round best one, in my opinion, especially for the money. Absolutely insanely good. I might do a little review on that at some point. It's just added an update, which I wasn't aware of, that allows you to do it on the Panasonic app. That's why you need an iPhone Plus, you see. So when you're doing drone work, you've got a massive screen to see what you're doing. It's brighter as well. And if you use it, I mean, you can use the Filmic Pro on the iPhone 7 Plus, and you can do focus pulls on it. It does 4K. It absolutely insanely good, the iPhone. I just think it's so funny that people rave about the GH5 and how great the quality is, but then what you know what your phone can do is kind of, you think, okay, well that's the professional one, and then you got your phone which can achieve this. Okay, yeah, low light ability is never going to be the same, but then you can use things like neat video and stuff. I mean, I would love to do a whole film on an iPhone, just to prove it's not about the equipment per se. It's more about the story and how you utilize movement and, you know, tell a story with the imagery. Not so much, oh, how much bokeh can it do? How good is it in low light? Like in body color, I mean, I don't think that matters in the slightest, because you're gonna do color grading anyway, no matter what, or whack a LUT on top of it. So I don't see why that's massively important. People was comparing the Canons. Oh, I love the colours of the Canons and Sonys. I love the Canon on the GH4 so much. But people like the GH5 colours, maybe because they've done some in-body LUT now over it. That's probably all it is. When I noticed, started swimming in 108 frames a second against the white walls in the background, it was pink. And it was on Cine D, like a flat profile. I have no idea what that was. Anyway, I've rambled on now for 25 minutes. You'll probably only be seeing about 5 minutes of this so far. But I need to move on subject-wise. So in body stabilization, you can turn off, and you're going to want to turn it off because I've heard some complaints with regards to some kind of odd warping or something like that. I've turned it off just in case it occurs anyway. Not that I've experienced it happen, but just in case, I've turned it off. The mic I'm using at the moment is the A-Lev mic, which is actually wired. I really like the mic. It condenses the stuff. The sound is pretty crisp and adds some bass to it. The Rode Link is pretty good as well. It's a wireless one, but you can get signal interferences and things like that. So that's something you need to kind of think about. But with wireless mics, you're not going to have that problem. As long as you're seated, there's no issue with a wired mic. So 10-bit 422. So 10-bit is going to essentially have more color, well, more whites to blacks. So all the gray area is going to have more. So it's going to be smoother, the transition. So in the background, you may see, usually it's skies and backgrounds, you'll see just like a white, slightly darker white, and then black, but you can see it like chunks, like bricks. Whereas with 10-bit, that's kind of smoothed out, and it's a nicer transition because there's more white to black information. And that's essentially what 10-bit is. And with the 422, essentially more color information, just more color. In idyllic kind of scenario is a 444. So 422 is what cinema and TV are going to love and kind of really want at 10-bit. I think 10-bit is kind of like, well, 8-bit is good enough, and I think it's still accepted on a lot of TV programs and whatnot, but they do kind of want as standard at least 10-bit now. So, I mean, that's the kind of standards that is coming up, and GH5 will take you there. But whether you can edit with it, whether it's production clever, that's another story altogether. And workflow is also an important thing. If you're a freelancer and your time is very important and you need to move from your project to project, it may not be the most practical thing to do, which is 10-bit 422. File sizes are basically quadrupled, and your computers are going to have to be damn fast. I mean, my MacBook Pro, I use a lot just because, you know, if I'm moving about everywhere, I can take it with me and work on the go, which is great. But it's been absolutely fine with 4K and the MP4 files from the GH4 and the GH5. You may have seen the focus jumping in and out of my face and the background. I wanted to do this as some kind of autofocus test, but I have done quite a few tests where I pull away and then pull in, and it's pretty sharp, it's pretty good. I've put sensitivity to high in the autofocus, but I'm hearing it a lot hunting. I mean, I'm not even moving, so I don't understand why it's trying to, it's like, ooh, get ready, and then it just randomly pulls focus, you know. At a moment, the phone's suggesting that I'm in focus. Let's put the phone there. How long does it take for you vloggers? See, that's not bad, is it, vloggers? Look at that. And then I put my hand away. How long does it take to get to my face? Now that would be too long for you vloggers. Look at that, that's mental. No, okay, it's not doing it. So I'll press on my face on the phone, and now it's pulling focus. There we go. That's why this is such a useful tool. The image seems so much sharper now. I think they've improved the app massively, because I believe it was a very, very low bit rate. Very low before. I think it was like 480p or something like that. Yeah, 480p I think it was. It looks a lot better. It looks at least 720p. It's a marked improvement. Yeah, so overall I would say the GH5 is a marked improvement over the GH4. Do I think it's worth an upgrade? My GH4 broke, so I thought I might as well, if I'm gonna have to pay all that money for another GH4, I might as well gain these extra features and, you know, come a bit more update. And, you know, the in-body stabilization was appealing to me because of the lack of stabilization in this lens, which is my favorite one. The 180 frames a second, that's very appealing. I mean, because the 96 frames, although nice, it wasn't quite slow enough to really slow stuff down. Okay, yeah, you can use optical flow in Final Cut Pro or Twixer, things like that, but then that's adding more workflow, and it's not as accurate as obviously filming in higher frame rates. So I would say I love that. as well. Low light ability is the same, so I wouldn't say buy it because you want to improve your low light ability. If you had an issue with that, the GH4, you're going to have an issue with this one. If you have computers fast enough and you have more time, generally because it's going to take time to render, I mean, you've got to have the fastest computers to cope with this, but if you want it and you need it, it's got 10-bit 422. But if you want to improve your low light, go to the GH5s. It's pretty close to the EVA 1 apparently. It's like a small, compact version of the EVA 1. And EVA 1 is got up to 14 stops, I believe. Was it 16 stops of dynamic range? Not sure. So this is my new beast setup, which I'm absolutely content with and happy with. You need to light your shots. Even in complete darkness, you want some kind of light to kind of tell a story. I'm a cinematographer, so that's what I do. It's all about lights and utilizing them lights to make things look aesthetically pleasing. Because everything you're receiving now, all this information you're receiving, all the color, everything, it's all through light. It's all light. So seeing in darkness is not going to be anything more than a horror story kind of scenario. It's not necessary. It's not. But obviously you want to reduce the noise in low light situations. Definitely low light is not quite darkness, and this does low light. Definitely does low light, just not darkness like the A7S II. If you want to creep around in the night and start spying people in black situations where they can't see you, yeah, get the A7S II sorted. But you ain't going to do that on the GH5. Anyway, so I am James Martini, and check out my website if you want to check out my blogs or see any of my work. So that's www.jamesmartini.com.